Hey guys, Political Junkie 2414 here, and welcome back to another video. So, in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at the accuracy, or rather the inaccuracy, of my 2022 prediction, or my prediction for the 2022 governor elections. Um, and so basically, what I'll do is over these, I'll go over the three races that I got wrong. What was my prediction for them? What was the reasoning for that prediction? And what I'll try to do, what I'll, basically, along the way, I'll explain what I'll, try to do in the future to prevent, these errors from reoccurring. So, first of all, on, a bit of a non-political note, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving, and I hope that you're preparing adequately for the holiday season, whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever it may be that is the holiday that you celebrate. Hope you're, I hope that you're preparing well for that. Of course, it's not December yet, and we still have a long ways away. But it's around that time of year, and yeah, I just hope you all are having a great day. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, I was really only wrong about three races, in the gubernatorial map, but I had pretty big misses in all of them. And some of them, a couple of these races, I was not too frustrated with myself about my incorrect calls, but there was one of them in particular that I was very upset about. So the three that I got wrong were were the governor elections in Arizona, Kansas, and Wisconsin. We're going to start with Kansas because I think that was the one that I was the most bitter about my prediction. This race I had is tilt Republican, and it ended up going to the incumbent Democrat Laura Kelly, which wasn't necessarily surprising to me. I thought that there was a really good chance that Kelly would be able to pull this off and win a second term. It was not at all out of the question in my mind. There was some good polling from Emerson College, some good polls for her from Emerson College, which predicted Chris Kobach would win the Republican would win the governor's race in 2018. He was, of course, the GOP nominee. Really sank that race for the Republican Party after Sam Brownback, or back when Sam Brownback, the former Republican governor, was a fresh memory in the minds of many Kansans. And Derek Schmidt, the GOP nominee, is currently the Attorney General on his way out, actually going to be replaced by Kobach, who ran in that race. In Kansas, was always going to be very competitive, and it looked really interesting back in August because it looked like Laura Kelly had regained a lot of momentum. And I personally had, in my prediction post the abortion referendum, which failed by 18 points across the state. The referendum was, meant to basically give the state was to add, I guess, power. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was essentially going to outlaw abortion, allow the state legislature, which was overwhelmingly Republican, to outlaw abortion throughout the state, inside in the state of Kansas. And voters rejected that by, and which wasn't, surprising on the surface, but the margin was very surprising. It failed by 18 percentage points. I would recommend checking out my video back in the summer where, I made a primary analysis on where I did a primary analysis for the night that that referendum failed, and I talk about that in that video. So check that out. I'll put a link to it somewhere in the video, maybe in the description or in the top right corner. But either way, Kelly was someone that I viewed was very vulnerable. For a time, I thought that she might win, but it also seemed to me that Schmidt was not someone who was Chris Kobach levels of bad. He was, a statewide official who had won, in the same year that Kelly did. He was, fairly popular within the state, and it was, even though governor elections are not at all bound by partisanship, it was still Kansas, and even though I knew Kelly would do really well in the suburbs, and would do well for a Democrat in the rural areas. It became very hard for me to see how she would be able to win because when I would go on to, when I would go on to the election shuffler, which is this little I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's essentially this what's the word? It's this rearrange. It's this uh website where you get to rearrange the presidential election results, or just the electoral results of each state in the U.S. You can change it from some the presidential results in 2020 or some other presidential races. And whenever I would try to do that to Kansas, it became very hard for me to see how Laura Kelly would be able to do that well or lower turnout that much in the rural areas, which, had been, unfriendly to the GOP, had been relatively unfriendly to the GOP as of late. For her to be able to win. I know I thought it would be close, but I ended up being wrong, and I wasn't super surprised that I was wrong. A lot of people had moved this into Kelly's column by election day, and abortion definitely played a big issue here, or a big role here. I was right on the House race, with Sharice Davids winning, not by as much as she won by a lot more than I expected, though, and I credit Laura Kelly to boosting her there. But Schmidt, I think, was just, Kelly was someone who Kelly really tried to tie to the Brownback administration and its failures, which, resonated with a lot of moderate Republicans and a lot of pro-choice voters that may have voted against that referendum in August. But and it was surprising that there was such high turnout from the state. I mean, it's still, it's still a midterm election. You're going to have a lot of people turning out. But for the pro-choice side, my thoughts were that since the referendum had passed, it wouldn't be as big of an issue in the November general election. And I thought Schmidt was a good enough candidate to take advantage of the state of the partisanship of the state. And oust Kelly. But I guess that I kind of, took too much of that into account. I think that that's, it was a good thing to consider, but I think I did, definitely overestimate Schmidt. And it does go to show that crazy things can happen on the local level in states as red as Kansas, although it is definitely a state that I think is becoming more competitive, as the years go on, but it's still very much a red state. So that's one race down. Next, we're going to go up to the state of Wisconsin. And this was another Democratic incumbent that I expected to lose, who won. Tony Evers, he was first elected in 2018. Again, he defeated the Republican incumbent, Scott Walker, who was very unpopular at the time. He was running for his third term. Wisconsin doesn't have term limits for their governors. And despite Walker's very, unpopular, Scott Walker's, um, very unpopular, very bad approval ratings, Evers was only able to defeat Michael, or not Michael's, Walker by about a point in the race, in the governor's race, and it was a blue wave year, and so even if 2022 was going to be somewhat of a neutral year, I thought, well, it's not doesn't take too much to swing a state as receptive to the national environment as Wisconsin, and get a Republican win in there, and I thought that Tim Michaels was not the best candidate that the GOP could have put up. I think that Evers definitely took advantage of Michaels, his ties to Trump. I don't think he was the best candidate by any means, and I made a point of saying, I think the only candidate that Tony Evers can really beat is Tim Michaels, and for a while I did have him winning his reelection, but by election day I had moved the race to lean red. I was fairly confident that Evers was going to go down, especially considering Wisconsin's polling misses, and even then, the polls were showing Republicans um, within striking distance of Evers, and so, it didn't take much for me to say that Wisconsin was going to go red, but it ended up going blue, and by a larger margin than, even 2018, Evers ended up winning, by about 3.3%. It was a pretty impressive performance, across the state. I think that that was in part because Madison and Milwaukee turnout was a lot, larger than I had originally expected. Um, Evers did really well in Door County, which is the bellwether of the state. He won it by 5 points. He did very well in the Driftless area, which is a very right-trending working class area. The congressional district here, is currently held by Democrat Ron Kind, and it was expected and did flip to the Republicans on the House level since Kind retired, although he may have lost anyway. It's super right trending. And the WoW counties, which are historically very Republican suburbs, had been very strong for Walker in 2018, and they were strong for Michaels, to be fair, but he definitely underperformed in these counties. And I think that Mandela Barnes, was someone that I originally thought would hamper Evers, and I thought that Evers was going to do worse in Madison and Milwaukee because, he wouldn't have as much reach, with black voters, but with getting black voters out to vote as Barnes would. But at the same time, I figured he would outperform him based on the fact that he was a lot better for working class voters. And Barnes, the Madison, Wisconsin Democrats had a fairly good night. They only lost that House race by about 3 points, which was a lot less than I expected. I remember saying that it would be a miracle if Democrats were able to hold on to that seat. Were able to hold on to Ron Kind's seat. That would mean, it would be a blue wave year. But obviously they didn't. But they lost it by a lot less than I thought they would. I thought it would be maybe even a double-digit margin of victory for Derek Van Orden, who has now been elected to serve that district next year. So Wisconsin, I think I really did underestimate Evers' support with working class voters. I think that Michaels was a lot worse of a candidate than I, originally anticipated. I thought, even if Evers won, it would be, a very small margin, but he ended up winning pretty comfortably. And it's pretty surprising to see how the polling misses in Wisconsin, which have, been, the polling bias towards Democrats in Wisconsin actually reversed this time, and it goes to show how much the pollsters have overcompensated for the 2020 polling miss, which was abysmal in Wisconsin in particular. So that's Wisconsin. And the final race that I got wrong was Arizona. I had this race as lean Republican, and I also had Wisconsin as lean red. You knew that already. I said that. But Katie Hobbs was someone that I did not think was the favorite. I definitely, pointed out that Hobbs had gained a little bit of traction before Election Day, and that the historical overestimation of Republican support in Arizona could help her out. That's what gave Kirsten Sinema the victory in 2018. But I also figured that she wasn't someone who really seemed to, have run a very good campaign. It seemed like Carrie Lake was someone who had had the ability to connect with voters in a way that Blake Masters did not. She had a lot of the same extreme policies and extreme viewpoints that generally on the surface did not seem like a very good campaign. A very good thing to incorporate into a campaign. But it seemed like it was really going to pay off because of the way that she really I guess sold it, or sold it, because she was a news anchor. She had a lot of name recognition in Arizona, and she seemed to know kind of, what she was doing in this campaign. She seemed to be in the driver's seat in those final months, and I wasn't frustrated with myself about this one either because a lot of people had Hobbs as, a significant underdog. Even some people had it as likely red. I only had it as lean red. Um, I wasn't sure about my prediction here. I had a feeling that Hobbs might surprise us because of the typical overestimation of Republicans in Arizona, but I didn't think it would be this large, and I figured, Maricopa County would be a dead heat. Hobbs won it by more than Biden did. She won Pima County by a good margin. She did better than Biden in Pinal County. Santa Cruz was pretty solid for her. She did a lot better with Hispanic turnout than I thought. Navajo was not good for her, but that's Navajo. It's usually a Republican county. Turnout from the rural areas was also really bad for Republicans in Arizona, and the and Maricopa was also the final batch of votes for Maricopa, which heavily benefited Trump in 2020, split pretty much even for Kelly and for Democrats and Republicans, which is what really made the races not change all that much. And so all of this pretty much added up to Arizona electing Katie Hobbs by 0.6%, which was a larger margin than Biden won the state by. He only won it by zero point 0.3. Not a big difference there, but still pretty shocking that it was an overperformance by Hobbs, but it was still a very tight race. I think that I really overestimated Arizona's swing to the left. Democrats did really well here, I believe, on the state legislative level. And I think that Hobbs really was, a good candidate in my eyes in the beginning, but she seemed to really not have it. And she seemed a little, she seemed like she was taking the race for granted. But it turns out that, it all worked out for Democrats in Arizona. And now they don't have to deal with Carrie Lake denying the election results in 2024 if they go to if Arizona votes for Joe Biden or whoever the Democrats put up for president. So overall, I got three races wrong. Um, I believe that adds up to about an 8% or somewhere from 8 to 11% inaccuracy. I can't remember the exact math that I did earlier. There's 36 governor races. So I got three wrong out of 36. Let me do the math right here. My calculator. Yeah, it's about a 9 or an 8% inaccuracy. So I was about 92% accurate in my governor's predictions. Not at all bad, but it could have been a lot better. I'm mad at myself about Kansas, not so much about Arizona or Wisconsin, but still pretty big misses there. Kansas, I think, was actually the state that I was the most accurate on. Wisconsin was the one that in terms of margin that I was farthest off. But still, you're gonna have races that you get wrong, and it's good to make these videos. It's good to laugh at your past mistakes, and it makes it go down a little bit. It makes the pill go down a little bit easier. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share the video with people you think might enjoy it. Turn on notifications so you don't miss another one. Check out my non-political channel, Interactor127, which will hopefully be rising. Which I will hopefully raise from the grave. Because it's pretty much been inactive for months. But now that the midterms are over, I have a lot more free time to make certain videos, not as much pressure with the elections. Of course, I will make more videos here, and I'll probably be making more here anyways, just out of habit, for doing it for so long. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and yeah, do all of that. I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things politics. See ya.